I think we have our media partners and staff joining us. So good afternoon, everyone. I'll get this media briefing started. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Michelle Shantz, and I'm a Senior Communications Officer here with the City of Hamilton, and I will be moderating today. Before we begin, I will ask those who are not speaking to please hold your questions and stay on mute until you are called upon to avoid any background noise. Please be advised that this media briefing is being recorded and will be posted publicly. Media partners are asked to keep their questions to the topic of the ATU Local 107 labor negotiations and the potential HSR labor disruption. I will now introduce the city spokespeople here today to provide an update and answer questions. First, we have Carlyle Can, our acting city manager, and Lora Fontana, executive director, human resources. With that, I will first turn it over to Carlyle, who will provide some opening remarks for us. Carlyle, please go ahead.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone for being here today with us. As you know, the city was informed approximately 9 p.m. yesterday that the ATU 107 members had rejected the city's final collective agreement offer. At that time, the ATU provided us with 72-hour strike notice. The union has set a strike date of Thursday, November the 9th at 12:01 at the start of the service day, which begins at 4:30 a.m. At this time, there will be no regular HSR service or MyRide on-demand service, but on-demand service will be available throughout the city. This disruption will cause this disruption this will cause the Hamiltonians is regrettable, but we certainly respect the collective bargaining process. The strike notification comes after the city has tabled its final offer at the request of the union, which is consistent with what was settled on by other union partners and which we think is fair. In the event of a transit strike, HSR customers are encouraged to start considering alternative transportation options, such as carpooling with neighbors or co-workers. Visiting the smartcommute.ca site for more information about Hamilton's carpool zone programs, walking or cycling if weather permits, and working from home if at all possible. A full list of these services can be found on the city's website, hamilton.ca/transit strike, along with an overview of all the changes of service levels we anticipate. It should be noted that DART's delivery of the specialized transit services will not be affected. All existing booked trips will remain in place, and there is no changes to how these trips are booked or delivered. We would like to apologize to our transit customers and the community partners for the inconvenience that we know this will cause. Please know that the city is committed to achieving a deal that is fair for workers and fair for the taxpayers. Thank you. With that, I'll hand it over to Lora Fontana to discuss the contract negotiations.
That's great. Thanks, Carlyle, and hello to everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with the media. I guess I would just add to what Carlyle has already said is that the city offer is, in our opinion, does ensure that our Hamilton transit operators compensation remains competitive with other transit operations. So just for some context, the ATU Local 107, our operators here in Hamilton, are ranked third on the city's list of 12 comparators from a compensation perspective, and they would remain there with what's being offered to them through this round of collective bargaining. Again, for some additional context from a non-union perspective, the increases that the non-union received earlier this year are in accordance with a council-approved compensation policy, which places the non-union staff at the midpoint of the comparator list. So that is the same list that we're talking about for all intents and purposes with the transit operators. So the city's offer to the ATU Local 107 would mean that Hamilton transit operators would earn approximately $79,000, almost $80,000 in the final year of their agreement. So again, they are the third highest paid in the list of comparators, and the non-union group again is in the middle of that list of comparators, again consistent with our council approved compensation policy. So I guess I would just add that, we recognize that many in our community, as well as our transit staff, are being impacted by the potential transit disruption. But we are dedicated to attaining a balanced agreement that places importance on the equity and accountability for both taxpayers and our employees, and resulting in benefits for all parties involved. So we are very committed to that. Thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, and thank you to you and Carlyle. We're now going to go to the members of the media for questions. We're going to begin with one question and one follow-up, and if timing permits, we will do a second round of questions. With that, our first media partner is Eric Viano from CHCH. Eric, if you have a question, please go ahead. Are you there, Eric? Okay, we will move along to our next media partner and come back. Next up is, and forgive me for the mispronunciation, Rakshar Ali from Global News. If you have a question, you can please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. I was wondering, has there been a plan for next talks? Have you set a time to meet again with the union and discuss?
So I can respond to that. Thank you, Rakshar. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. We do have scheduled talks that are going to resume tomorrow with ATU. So we're just finalizing some venue arrangements, but we do have planned talks to resume our collective bargaining tomorrow morning.
Thank you. And just to follow up, I think you mentioned that this was the final offer. So is there no room to budge?
So we did table a final offer at the request of the union, but in terms of the discussions at the collective bargaining table, we remain open to having conversations about our final offer. But whether or not we're able to do anything more, we'll just have to look at what's being discussed. But in terms of our mandate, we did present a final offer, and that is exactly it. We might be able to move around certain things, but in terms of the mandate, we are basically at the end of what we're able to provide or offer.
Thanks.
Thank you, Laura. Our next media partner is Bobby Hristova from CBC Hamilton. Bobby, if you have a question, you can go ahead.
Thank you very much. A great weekend and a good start of the week here. My question for whoever can answer this.
Bobby, you are cutting out just a tiny bit. I don't know if it has a bit of a connection issue, but I did want to flag it as hard to hear your question. So if you want to try it.
Better for yell? Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Everyone in the newsroom can hear me now. Okay, so my first one is, will you make other commuting options like e-scooters, for example, more affordable if the strike does go on? I just spoke to someone today who's on a fixed income and says if they can't take the bus, they can't go anywhere. They're gonna have to stay home. So what are you doing there?
So I'll take that question. Thank you, Bobby, for it. I think as if we get to Thursday morning and the strike happens, then we will work with our various departments and divisions and with our partners in seeing what can be done. At this point in time, that hasn't been confirmed, but I know that staff are working towards finding solutions and ways of making this easier on the community.
Follow up, Bobby?
Yes, my follow up is, the union was saying that workers in comparator regions have been offered, are making substantially more money. They have more, better wages. I'd like to hear your response to what they're saying there.
Well, maybe I'll start, Carlyle, and then so I think we shared earlier, and I spoke specifically earlier to the transit operator wages. Their annual salary at the end of the contract would be approximately $79,000 to $80,000 a year. They are currently third highest, just behind City of Mississauga and the City of Brampton. In terms of their salary compensation, and the wages that we've offered them through this round of collective bargaining at this point in time would preserve them at the third highest amongst those comparators.
Thank you, Laura. Our next media partner is Matthew Van Dongen from the Hamilton Spectator. Matthew, if you have a question, you can go ahead.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Just to kind of follow up on that, I guess this question would be to Laura. Just so I'm clear on apples to apples comparisons, when we talk about that $79,000 in the last year of the contract, or I think that's somewhere around $38 an hour, is that what a first year transit operator would make, or a senior transit operator, or does it matter? Just so I know what is that sort of the base wage that a starting driver would make? Can you just sort of talk me through what that number means?
Sure, Matthew. It really is the end rate. There is a probationary rate, if I can put it that way, or a trial rate for the first 6 weeks that the transit operator is hired. There's a training period, but they are at the end rate or the full rate after the 6-week training period. Okay,
so we can say, you would earn up to $38 an hour in the final year of that contract.
Yeah, and that is exclusive of any overtime.
Okay, and maybe just as a follow-up, if you don't mind, in talking to the union, they had indicated that we are in danger of, or are in fact losing drivers and maintenance workers to other municipalities with a higher pay scale. Can you quantify how many drivers we may be losing in the last couple of years? Are we seeing an exodus?
No, Matthew, that's the short answer. We're not seeing a high turnover at all amongst transit operators. And those that are leaving, it's the normal percentage of turnover. Whether or not they're leaving for other transit properties, I'm not aware of that. But again, the only other two properties that pay higher than Hamilton are Mississauga and Brampton, and I'm not aware of anything to suggest that they're leaving to go to those two municipalities. The turnover rate amongst the transit operators is not high.
Thank you, Laura. Given we do have a bit of time, we'll do another round of questions for our media partners. I'll go back to Ruxar Ali from Global News. Ruxar, if you have a question, you can go ahead. Okay, we will move along, not a problem. Bobby Herstova from CBC, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yes, I do, and hopefully you can hear me better this time around.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Bobby.
I guess the question I have, Mississauga and Brampton, they have lower populations than Hamilton. Can you explain why they pay their workers more than ours, given that our city is bigger than theirs?
So I'll start that question. Maybe Carlyle has anything to add. I just think it's a product of their collective bargaining. It's also a product of the cost of living, quite frankly, in living in Mississauga and living in Brampton. The cost of living in those two cities particularly is higher than the cost of living in Hamilton. And a bus operator is a bus operator is a bus operator. So it won't make a difference in terms of the size of the municipality. It is the operation of the transit vehicle, and that's what the compensation is based on, the operation of being a transit operator, and then other positions within the ATU, which is also maintenance, for example.
Thank you very much. My other question for you, I don't know if maybe this is a dumb question, but I'll ask it anyway. We know that the LRT is being built. That might not be complete for some time now, but if we do ratify an agreement here, how long would that be? And might that extend to, HSR workers working on the LRT if that is serviced publicly?
So Carlyle here, I'm going to try and answer that question. We are currently working or having discussions with Metrolinx with regards to the LRT and how the project will progress. We're also putting forward 4 models that could potentially operate, the model that it can operate under. So at this point in time, that has not been confirmed, but we continue to work with Metrolinx staff in moving that forward.
Thanks, Carlyle. Next up, Matthew Van Dongen, Hamilton Spectator. If you have another question, please go ahead.
Hi, forgive me if this sounds repetitive, but I think it's maybe worth repeating anyway. In the press release, it mentions that you're going to be kicking off your contingency planning. What does that actually involve?
So I'll start with that question, Matthew, and thank you for it, and we'll move forward. Contingency planning is really about making sure the assets are safe, making sure that staff at the city understand what a strike is, how to respectfully cross a picket line for those that need to do that to show up for work, and also how to maintain the fleet as time goes by. If it's a day or two, then there's minimal maintenance required. As it goes on longer, then we're going to have to take care of the fleet, turn over the engines, make sure that they're in good operating condition, so that when the strike is over, we're able to quickly resume services.
Okay, good. So not contingency planning in the sense of looking for other alternatives for citizens, but I think you maybe addressed that a little bit in answering one of Bobby's questions. But I'll ask you to do it again. Are we looking for ways to make SOBI more accessible, or taxi use temporarily more accessible, or are there things that we're working on in that sense?
Yeah, thanks for the question again. As I indicated earlier, we will work, all the departments are working to see how we can ease the impact of this on the community. It's very early days right now to come back with a definitive answer what we can or cannot do. We need to have internal discussions with various departments, with divisions, and also our service delivery partners in the private sector who help provide these services. So we're not quite there yet, but we will definitely look at every option available to us.
Thanks, Carlyle. I do want to give Eric Biano from CHCH another opportunity if he is on the line and has a question. I see that he is having microphone issues, so we will move along. I do just do on an earlier question, I did just want to, for the record, note that both Mississauga and Brampton have larger populations than the city of Hamilton, with Mississauga being about 800,000 and Brampton 600,000. So just wanted to put that on the record for this briefing. So with that, that does conclude today's media availability. If any members of the media have any follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out to myself directly, and I will follow up with you with the information you're looking for. Really appreciate all of you joining us today. Thank you to Carlyle and Lora and our media partners, and hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.